Hello and welcome to Forgotten Frights. I am Josh and I'm sitting here with Adam.
Hey.
Today on the podcast, we are reviewing the 1977 horror film Rituals, directed by Peter Carter and starring Hal Holbrook, Lawrence Dane, and Robin Gammell. Here's the trailer.
If you go down in the woods today, you're sure of a big surprise.
If you go down in the woods today, you're sure of a big surprise.
This animal has only been dead for a couple of hours.
Look, Harry, somebody's playing a very sick game with us, and I want to know who, and I want to know why.
If you go down in the woods today, you better go in disguise.
April's dead, Harry.
Was it a man?
For every man that ever knew us will gather there for certain enough. Today's the day the teddy bears have their
We're in the middle of nowhere, Mitzi. No one's gonna help us.
Why? Why is this happening to us?
Somebody has stolen the boots!
Why would anyone steal 5 pairs of boots?
Get off it, DJ.
Look! 2 months ago, I sent everyone Xerox sheets of what I would supply and what you were to bring. You were to bring extra shoes and your toothbrush. I supplied everything else.
5 doctors on their annual ritual, just trying to have a good time. But this is the year they should have stayed at home.
That thing's never going to let us out of here.
Rituals isn't a picnic. You're in for a big surprise.
All right, there was the terrifying trailer to Rituals starring Hal Holbrook. Adam, were you scared?
Yeah, no, but the movie is quite intense.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I would agree.
Yeah.
As an aside, I'm having fun with this podcast. I'm not going to lie.
Well, me too.
I think I'm glad listeners at home, if you're just tuning in for episode 4 and you made it through episode 1 and 2, even though I tried to dial out the hiss, we got this going because we had originally, I had an old podcast called the Vintage Talk Bag in which I reviewed lots of artsy fartsy things along with movies. And then Adam, you and I started reviewing old horror movies and anthologies.
Yeah.
We were then like, hey, why don't we just start a movie review podcast? There aren't enough of those out there, and people just don't review movies.
Untapped.
So we started one called the Film Can to just review old movies. And then I urged eventually to maybe, I don't know, find the niche, I always mess up that word, but the niche audience, but also our love of horror movies in general. And you were very gracious to go stop changing podcasts and let's figure this out. But to do something like Forgotten Frights, where we just look at old school horror movies, I shouldn't even say old school. I should literally like vintage horror films that maybe people didn't that we didn't know, and that maybe other people just had never heard of. But I guess like literally forgotten films. So and I'm having a really good time with it. I think it's been I think this is a really neat idea, and the films have all been good so far. Fingers crossed. And I hope that continues.
And I agree. I was actually talking to my wife this morning about how, we don't get to, people get busy and you don't get to talk as much as you like to. I think it's cool that we watch these movies independently. And then even if we were to talk before the podcast, it's unwritten and unsaid that we're not going to talk about the movie until we're on the podcast, which I think is very, it would be so easy for me to call and be like, I can't believe what happened in this movie, but it's, we keep it for the podcast. And no, it's a good time I think you and I both enjoy the, movie making in general, and, bad or good movie, you can take something out of the experience.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. And I think also like comparing it to films we see now. It's also giving me, especially with anthologies. But I think even within those segments, comparing some of those segments to just like modern films and saying like, oh, this horror movie wasn't even as good as the segment in this movie from the 1970s, or that today's film, which I think is actually superior to a movie it's compared to, which we'll get into. It's,
agreed.
That you can go to a film like this from, in this case, 77 and say, oh, this has a lot of, pathos. It's got a lot of emotional quality to it. It's got a lot of eeriness, and it's got a lot, and then you watch, modern films and so many of them, the word's kicked around like slick, so many of them are so polished, and there's like, you have the structure is so tight that everything has to be referential to something that happened earlier. There's no room for just like, why did this weird thing happen in the movie that's never explained? And so going back to these older films, it's been really cool to see that. And I know we're on episode 4, but like I said, I'm going to repost some of our older conversations from those other podcasts. And I think in the same way we have, like Black Sabbath, The Last Man on Earth, The Haunted Palace. I'm trying to think of what, I know we got another one in there.
Crack in the World involved?
Yeah, I'm going to re-upload Crack in the World because I think it still fits that horror idea. And more so, I enjoyed that one because it's just that movie's not good.
Not,
but I think the conversation is.
Not to blow smoke. I agree 100%. Not to blow smoke because I know that people worked hard on that movie to make it, a fully fleshed film. But I think that our conversation is better than the film.
I agree. So regardless, that's just a long-winded pat on the back. I think I'm enjoying this. As far as sound quality, I want to get going on this so that we can definitely hone that in and make sure consistency and all that stuff. And who knows, as we go on with this, if we're enjoying it and we're getting together more often, maybe that at some point in our lives, this will come down to meeting on Sundays and doing like a weekly thing. If that's something in the foreseeable future. But anyway, I've just enjoyed it so far. And I think it's, I'm looking forward to doing more.
Agreed.
So today's movie rituals, we've got Hal Holbrook. You called this film Old Man Predator, which I think is a very interesting. It actually messed with my expectations of the film.
And we were talking this morning, and I feel like it, upon second viewing, I really had a different experience with this movie.
Yeah. It is definitely, I can see where you got that. My expectation for the film was very much, I was going to see Hal Holbrook in a tree shirtless with a torch yelling into the darkness, and that's not what I saw. I got a whole different thing going on.
It was real close though.
But I think, let's work through the film and let's just, discuss what happens. Before we get there though, I do want to talk about the tagline to the film.
What is the tagline?
If you go down in the woods today, you're in for a big surprise. What do you think?
That is underselling.
Is there a
surprise?
Yeah. Is there a worse tagline?
But, it's not lying.
Yeah.
But it is, I don't know.
Have you seen the movie Miami Blues with Alec Baldwin and Fred Ward and Jennifer Jason Leigh?
I can't say that I have.
It's a psychological film that's very Tarantino-esque, I would say. It's got it seems very modern now if you go back and watch it. It's very it's got a gritty angle to it, but it's got some real meat to it, and you could rewatch it. Very much like it reminded me of like Thief with James Caan. So just very layered film, and you can go back and pick some things out of it. If you watch the trailer for that film, it is sold like a comedy. I swear there's Benny Hill music over the trailer.
I thought it was a comedy.
It's not. It's sold as like, what if Alec Baldwin, as a criminal, got a badge? And then it shows him like Baby's Day Out being like, freeze, creep. That is like 5 minutes of the film.
Wow.
Yeah. It's like Kangaroo Jack.
I've never seen that movie either.
I guess like Kangaroo Jack is in that movie in a dream sequence. And it was sold as like a movie with, it was sold as a movie in which like people interact with a talking kangaroo.
That's what I thought it was.
Not at all.
Wow.
Yeah. And so Miami Blues in the same way. But anyway, getting back to it, that tagline, if you go down in the woods today, you're in for a big surprise. That's a terrible tagline.
Yeah.
I think it should say old man predator.
Yeah.
And there should be a picture of Arnold Schwarzenegger on the cover.
PhD disaster.
Yes. Have you seen the cover? Have you seen the VHS cover?
Is that the one with Hal Holbrook with the gun?
There's the one where he's got like the gun and it's like black and white kind of, or not black and white, but it's like a black backdrop, I should say. And then he's on that one. There's another one that's more like Deliverance inspired. That's pretty cool. And it actually looks like the film grain quality of this movie, which is not good.
No.
But but it's an interesting, it's a cool, it's very chaotic. There's a lot going on, but it definitely, I think it speaks more to the poster than Hal Holbrook with a shotgun. So let's go through this movie, the synopsis. I mean, do you want to take it away? Is that?
Yeah, I can start us off here. I mean, essentially we have 5 or 6. Was it 5? Yeah.
This says, and just so you know, I mean, I've got like a plot thing pulled up too. But I mean, it's 5 surgeons, and it looks like they're all former medical school cohorts. Some of this information I'm pulling from Wikipedia. So if it if it conflicts with anything, we can address it. But they're on their way to a wilderness retreat in Ontario, Canada, or it should be, I guess, Northern Ontario.
Yes.
There's Harry, Mitzi, Martin, DJ, and Abel. Those are the 5.
Correct.
And they're out traveling. This is a wilderness retreat. It just, the way the movie gets started, it seems like there's already so much like conflict. And the first part, they're just talking about what they're going to do as, I don't know, what, neurologists or whatever, or like what, because they're also reeling from the death of like one of their friends. But I don't know if
death of the friend, or was it a death of?
His name's Andy, and he had like committed suicide.
Okay,
but I don't know if that was in they're all old, so that's part of the thing I didn't really understand. Was that years and years ago?
I'm not sure. I just there is a lot of there's a lot of backstory as far as the mistakes that they've made.
Yeah,
there's a lot of that. And I thought about that while I'm watching the movie. It crossed my mind. I'm like, why are they talking about work so much on vacation? But I think, for me, I'm getting up there, and I feel like I try to limit that when I'm with friends, or I'm supposed to be doing, like having an R&R type situation, but it still comes up. I think it's hard not to talk about stuff like that. But yeah, there's definitely some weight to their conversations when it comes to, them being surgeons and the mistakes they've made. That was set up in the very beginning for sure.
Well, I almost like you wanted to laugh it off a little bit, because they're talking almost like, oh, what are you going to do in your future? And I'm like, you guys are 65 years old.
I don't think they were, though.
I don't think they were either. I think it was just they all smoke cigarettes, so many cigarettes, and they're all like 35.
Yeah. Look, at that point, Hal Holbrook looked like a grandfather, and now I believe he's still alive, and he looks like a grandmother.
Here, it's something that just like freaked me out the other day, because chances are Hal Holbrook is 30 years old in this movie. Excuse me. Chances are he's much younger than we think. I was listening to Dance Macabre on audio, like as an audiobook.
Okay.
Stephen King's Dance Macabre.
Yeah, nice.
He's talking about writing this essay at 33 years old. Yeah. I am 35 years old.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, he had already written like his thesis on horror movies at 33.
Wow.
And it just immediately, I was like, because it seemed like he was like 45, you know what I mean? Like writing this thing. And then I look back and I'm like, oh no, he was just like he was like in his 30s, like right?
Crazy
It's
talent.
crazy.
Yeah.
So that's why, like with Hal Holbrook, it's kind of like, oh, okay, yeah, he's old man Predator, but he's probably like what, 40?
Yeah, you know, it's so hard to tell. Yeah, and he's got an old. I mean, he's just always been. He's been one of those guys that's always seemed like an old man. He just always has. You know.
Yeah, and I think probably a lot more to that might lend itself to the fact that like it seemed like he was in a lot of 80s like crime movies.
Sure.
Where he was like not a detective, but like a police chief, or he was in
Creepshow.
Creepshow. Oh yeah, so he played the kind of like.
Put upon husband.
Yeah. And he was like a businessman.
Yeah.
You know?
I think his name was Harry.
Yeah, because his name's Harry in this.
Yeah.
I'm just going to call him Old Man Predator. So I don't, his name's Harry and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. Was he
Harry Holbrook?
Yeah, was it Harry Holbrook? Harry Hal Holbrook? That's right. Maybe he was the one with the Hendersons. Have you thought about that?
I have. No, I have.
I just did.
I won't stop thinking about it.
And I'm done thinking about it now. So anyway, they are, they're kind of, it seemed odd to me that they were talking about career moves, but I think in looking at this kind of review synopsis, it seems like they were more maybe just bickering about the fields that they all worked in as far as like medical, because that's going to play in later is the fact that there's some medical drama.
Yes.
With the individual in the woods.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So anyway, they go and first night they're out camping and horsing around doing that sort of thing, and they get up in the morning.
And the area they're in is called the Cauldron of the Moon.
Cauldron of the Moon?
Cauldron of the Moon.
Cauldron of the Moon. Yeah. Yeah, because they go look over it and it's very like it's Canadian wilderness.
Yeah, and what the plane drops them off. And then basically the pilot, by the way, he didn't get enough screen time because in the very beginning, he's flying the plane. Mm-hmm. He turns around, opens his shirt, shows them a giant scar across his chest. He's like, what do you think of this?
Yeah.
And they're like, great, fly the plane. But he drops them off. And then 6 days later, they're supposed to meet back up in this same pond area. They keep saying that they can't land the plane on the river. They have to land it on the bay or the pond, and that's where they'll be picked up in 6 days.
So this is where I was confused, is that they were talking about going to the dam, and I wasn't sure, were they supposed to go get picked up at the dam, or were they just supposed to come back? Because I actually liked it, like, if that was the case, that the narrative structure then is they get dropped off, and then they have to journey through the woods to get to this dam in order to be picked back up, which isn't unusual. That's not, that is something that, I've read through the realms of hiking. As you get dropped off at this point, you go stay in a cabin overnight, you hike to a cabin, stay there, and then you continue hiking until you hit a point where you're picked back up.
And that may be right. The dam part might be right.
Because it ends up being like a source of, later in the film, it's like a source of like, we got to get there.
But I do feel like they really did hit the whole, they can't land on the river. And I think the dam was attached to a river.
Okay. Yeah. So they said the water was too low or something. And they
yeah. Or maybe it was just too fast.
It could have been too fast.
Yeah.
Also, the guy who opened his shirt was very much just like, they were like, hey, you don't have to do that. It was just like, kiss my ass. Regardless, they go, first night they're yucking it up. This says they were arguing, but I didn't really. I mean, maybe they were kind of.
Some of them were, and then a couple of the guys were smoking a joint. And
then one of them came through with like a light or something to try to scare them.
Yeah.
And they were all laughing about it.
Kind of dance around the fire.
Yeah, and there's also like that Simpsons episode where they go to they're on the raft and they get rescued, but they go to like Camp Crystal Lake and the guy's playing Kumbaya around the fire. And it's like from Jason's perspective, and he's like looking through the woods at them around the fire. As funny as like a comparison as that is, I got it was very like slasher movie. They're all yucking it up around the fire and somebody's watching them and like walking through the woods. It was very, very eerie, very creepy.
And was this, that struck me too. Was this one of the very earliest POV shots like that? Because I mean, this is a year before Halloween.
When did Black Christmas come out? Because Black Christmas, I think, was like
late 70s. Maybe 74, 75. So maybe that.
Let's see. Black Christmas. I'm looking it up right now. 1974.
So, but you think about it.
But it's still early on, right?
Halloween gets a lot of credit for that stuff, though.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I guess the POV shot, that's one tracking shot, more or less. It's just like one full shot.
It's a full 3 years before Friday the 13th.
Yeah.
So,
Black Christmas, actually, the original 74 would be a great one to cover on the podcast.
That's a good flick. I
I
think I'm going to watch that before Christmas, yeah.
Yeah, that's why. And the wife and I are planning on doing it as well. Horrible idea to watch that movie. Just looking for like we just willy-nilly threw it on because it was free on YouTube, and that was such a bad idea. Yeah, because it was late at night. We were hanging out, and it was such a bad idea.
That is, I believe it's one of the selections on. Shout out to one of my favorite YouTube channels, Newcastle After Dark.
Yeah,
but they cover it and they give a little backstory on it too.
That's cool. Yeah, I just don't see that on enough list, but there's a lot of POV shots in there of the killer kind of climbing up into the sorority and wandering around the house and all sorts of creepy stuff. But anyway, I was getting now that we bring it up, definitely the same vibes. Yeah, somebody watching a group of people who they're I guess they're arguing and bickering, but they're not like unlikable. They all seem very. It's one of those. In case the listener didn't know, this movie gets a lot of parallels to Deliverance. With Burt Reynolds and Ned Beatty. And I think because it's a group of guys in the woods by a river. I don't know what the
I didn't really get that.
I guess either. Because there's because I guess even hillbillies, but that's not even really what happens. So I don't know, what the whole idea is there. But this kind of like people in the out in the woods, having a good time, just looking to get away from life. Clearly they're busy. They're all doctors and that sort of thing. And they're just heading out into the wilderness to go on this hike as friends. And then you've got somebody just like hiding in the woods waiting to murder them in horrific ways or to use, wilderness battlements in order to maim and injure them.
Just to finish the cast off on Deliverance as well. John Voight and Ronnie Cox also.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and I don't. So I don't. And that's John Borman. Love it. But both these movies both of those movies have just completely different feels. And when did Deliverance come out? What year was
72?
Which is weird. So this is 77, and it was still like, it's just kind of like another Deliverance, which I really didn't see it as another Deliverance. Yeah. And it just so regardless, they get up in the morning and their boots are gone.
They're like hanging out on the river. They're fishing. They're floating in the water, and their boots are gone. Yeah.
Yep. So somebody's stolen their boots. Obviously, a problem because they're hiking. So it just kind of creates some conflict amongst them. One of them, DJ, he is. I think this says there's animosity amongst the group. It just seemed like it's some bickering guys and they get annoyed with each other, whatever. He ends up, he's going to hike up to the dam to get him out of there.
And DJ is Marty's brother.
Yes. Yeah. Cause that comes up and just after that, they see like a deer head, right? That evening after DJ leaves, there's like a deer head effigy in the woods. And so they're kind of like, DJ must have set this up.
Yeah, and the blood is very fresh. And it's a very, very
like, he's trying to scare us.
New find,
The one guy's like, my brother wouldn't do that. He's not gonna, this or that.
My brother wouldn't decapitate a deer while he's trying to find us help.
Yeah.
What does he have a hacksaw with him? Like, why would that even cross anybody's mind?
Why would he? Yeah. Was there so much animosity that
he's walking through the woods and he's like, okay, I got to get some help. And he looks over, sees the deer. He's like, it's just too good. I got to do it.
Well, better kill this deer and scare the crap out of those.
Got this pocket knife with me.
I guess they continue on. They set off. There's like a beehive that explodes and starts chasing them out of some kind of, I don't know if it's a trap.
Yeah, they're taking a picture. They're kind of sitting. At this point in the movie, it's something's up, but nothing too crazy has happened yet.
Yeah.
So they're like having this moment of like, three of the guys are sitting down and they're doing a hear no evil, speak no evil, see no evil picture. And as they're taking that picture, a beehive or a hornet's nest falls out of the tree. And, like bees everywhere.
Yeah.
And they start running down the hill to get away from the bees so they can get into the water.
Yeah. And I think outside of the POV shot, it's not overwhelmingly apparent that anybody's even after them in any way that's like nefarious or evil.
Aside from the fact that, like the boots are gone.
Yeah.
And, there's some clues, but yeah, nothing.
Yeah. And they haven't really put it together. I think at one point, one of the guys says like, while he's sitting on the river, like, who would steal 5 pairs of boots?
Right.
Yeah. So they continue on. We get into we get into the trouble with Abel and on the river. And I didn't really catch this, but Abel falls into the river. I guess if there was going to be like a deliverance comparison, it's like when they go over the little waterfall and they kind of like, I think there's supposed to be a gunshot or something, and one of them goes flying off. Similar in that respect, I guess, but Abel gets, I think maybe one of them sees somebody throw him down a incline or something to that effect.
That's not what I took from it. I took from it that the either he got stung to death or the running down the hill away from the bees caused him to have a heart attack.
Okay. Yeah, because they pull his body out of the water and Hal Holbrook's just like...
Yeah, was he even in the water?
I think they pull him right out.
Okay.
They're up on the...
Yeah. I think it was
on the shore. They pull him up on the...
Yeah.
And the guy's trying to give him CPR and Holbrook's just like, he's dead.
Yeah. Yeah.
So then they...
And Hal Holbrook, I've always liked Hal Holbrook as an actor, but he probably doesn't get enough credit for how he navigates this film. Like he is uncomfortably stoic, and I don't know. There's something very there's something about this movie that's very PTSD from the war.
Yeah.
For sure. And
that's definitely a running theme.
Yeah.
Is this like, neglect from the war?
Yeah.
And I think he was in the Korean War, Hal Holbrook's character.
Yeah.
So maybe it's just a warfare in general. There's another thing with like guardianship that I'll talk about toward the end, that I felt like was something that keeps coming up throughout the film. But yeah, it's a critique of the aftermath of warfare and what happens to people. And Hal Holbrook, building on that, I should say, right after Abel dies, he's sitting alongside Martin, it looks like.
Martin or Marty, yeah.
Yeah, and they're sitting there and they're having they have a rather deep conversation about alcoholism and about, I think, the suicide of their friend. I think they bring up a little bit. And then Holbrook kind of tells a story about flying a plane in the Korean War, and being dumb and that sort of thing. And I think that kind of plays into this idea that they have, they were irresponsible, and that warfare more or less is irresponsible. You do dumb things, and then the aftermath of that is, you still have to live.
Coming to terms.
Yeah.
Yep.
And this is very like Vietnam bushfighting.
Yeah.
So I think that's, it's got to be intentional, right?
I think so.
Yeah.
He's got the bandana on his forehead.
Yeah.
Hal Holbrook is very much it.
Yeah. So they continue on. It looks like, so one of the guys locates a rope.
Mitzi. Yeah.
Yep. And they think it's DJ's rope.
Yep.
That because DJ's ahead of them, headed to the dam.
Yep.
And then, so the next day or that evening.
So I have as a note, before the next day, Mitzi's talking about how they need to have a fire so they can have dinner. And Harry is like, we're not gonna have a fire. Clearly there's somebody trying to get us. And they settle on powdered milk and dates for dinner.
Yeah, because the guy gets frustrated and he's like, what are we going to eat? Well, I can't eat this, can't eat this. Oh, rice? Nope, not going to happen because Harry says we can't have a fire.
Yep.
And there is like this, like, Harry's keeping it together and like everybody else seems to be like petulant children, But I think it's just the frustrations of like, as they get going, it's like madness. and the existing trauma of what I could only imagine is if you're being hunted by somebody and not under how psychotraumatic is that, and Hal Holbrook just kind of, he is like this guardian father figure, he's like I wouldn't say like war hero, but he's the one who's,
voice of reason.
Yeah. And you've got them all acting like petulant children, and they go through this whole thing where they get mad because they can't eat rice and they can't do this. And, but we were just talking about, the psychological trauma of being hunted and knowing that, one of your friends is dead, and then you can't have any creature comforts to help you feel better.
Yeah.
So more so I was watching it and trying to rationalize, like, why is this guy being a jerk? Like, why is he, why is everybody going against Holbrook? But if you really put yourself into that position, it's like, how terrifying. And then, you want to be comfortable, and the person who you're looking to help you is like, no, you can't be comfortable in any way. We just have to keep walking, and we have to get where we got to go.
Yeah. Yep.
So after that, they get going through the water, and
they're crossing, and they're using what they think is DJ's rope to cross the river.
Yeah. And it very well might be DJ's rope, I would imagine, but it seems like whoever is hunting them also maybe in the aftermath of that placed a trap.
From what they said, or from what I think Harry said,
yeah,
there were traps all along. And they have a really good shot in the movie where one of their walking sticks comes real close to a trap. It shows underneath the water.
Yeah.
So it shows you beforehand. It's like, this is dangerous.
Yeah.
Something bad is, it definitely is showing you shit's about to happen.
And one of them, and I forget who it is, but let me see, Marty, who was talking about alcoholism and all this stuff, already kind of like breaking, bear trap, like breaks his leg. Oh. It's underwater. And it's a very long, and I would say necessarily drawn out scene, not unnecessary, but totally necessary, of him just like pleading and being in misery as they drag him out of the river. And, it just adds to that, the trauma of everything and the kind of psychological horror that they're like, okay, now we're like, whoever it is means business, And so then they get out of there, and between Mitzi and Harry, they have to carry Marty along. Am I missing anybody? Because I think DJ left. You got Mitzi.
DJ left.
Marty gets his leg broken, and then Abel's dead, and then you have Harry. So you have the three.
Have Harry and Mitzi are carrying
Marty.
Yeah. This is the part of the movie where I think you start to understand, and maybe this is where the suspension of disbelief really has to begin, because, this is a bit of a Voorhees situation where you have, this killer has his stuff together in such a way where it's like he is so ahead of the curve.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he's so ahead of them. He's setting up traps.
Yeah.
So, for me, I think the rest of this movie warrants that. But you could definitely at this point in the movie be like, how is this guy able to,
Yeah. And I think I guess later in the film, you kind of like, oh, okay, we just got to like rationalize it and throw it out the window.
Yeah.
I guess we'll get there. But they're, I guess in the moment, they're still carrying Marty through the woods on a stretcher.
Yeah.
And then eventually they get up into an area where there's been a forest fire, and they rest. And when they get up in the morning, they find Abel's head on a stick. And Harry does the only responsible thing, which is to grab the stick and just whip it out of sight, because why would you want to even look at that? And then they argue. Him and Mitzi argue, and Mitzi tells him, I'm not carrying Marty anymore. This is ridiculous. We could just leave him. And I think he tells him at one point, like, who's going to know? And Harry's like, I am.
Yeah.
Yeah. Some more of that psychological, like,
yeah,
we can't leave people behind. We can't.
And Harry makes the point. He's trying to break us. He wants us to leave our friend,
Yeah.
Just a point to make, this feels like a real struggle. Like this feels like a real, like just even on set filming the movie, it looks like a struggle. Like,
yeah, they're very dirty.
They're very dirty. They're moving, two guys carrying, in the longer shots, maybe the stretcher doesn't have anybody on it, but they're walking on rocks and it looks hot out there. They are devolving quickly.
Yeah. And, they go, like moments after like Harry's pulling the stretcher and it's just agonizing.
Yes.
It's just agonizing and horrible until like Mitzi comes back and they eventually get to Mitzi comes back, helps them out, and they eventually get to the dam. And right when they get to the dam, they put Marty in a cabin that they find nearby. And then they find DJ up in a chair with like a iron thing through his leg. He's been tortured. And then Holbrook kind of mercy kills him because he's just already, I guess, past the point of saving.
Like a Universal Movies monster. Like
he just chokes him on both sides of his neck. Yeah. He pulls it's a real Lon Chaney Jr.
This is the best way to do it.
He's like,
I'm a doctor. I think I know what I'm doing.
When you showed up this morning, I was just finishing Rituals, which good call. Terrible movie to watch like first thing in the morning. But that scene was on because we're at the tail end of the movie, and I made the joke that it was like, was there any other way we could possibly mercy kill DJ? Because he just starts choking him to death. It's like, I couldn't pick a more like drawn out way to kill somebody in the moment. Like, I don't, even bashing him with a rock, I don't know. It just seems something that would like coup de grace him a little bit quicker. But anyway, so then Harry goes back down. I think Mitzi's gone at this point. He leaves again. Harry goes down, finds Marty in the cabin. Marty's dead. And I'm not really sure. Maybe his leg was broken and then he died of shock. I don't.
Who's this?
Marty? The one, who they were
he leaves him at the dam. I think he's just, there was a point where
loss,
they were moving him up the river. That was another one of those scenes that was just so, the struggle was real. Like Mitzi and Harry are moving this stretchered Marty up the river and they get around this rock and there's just a giant waterfall in their way. Yeah. And it's just, and then they have a fight and then Marty kind of starts floating away a little bit. And I think that just delivers more trauma to Marty. I don't think he really had a chance, but Harry leaves Marty at the dam.
And then
Mitzi leaves.
Yeah, Mitzi leaves. Marty, I guess Marty's dead at that point. He just, and then Harry goes out and finds a cabin at that point.
He finds a cabin, sees some, he walks into the cabin and he starts eating ceiling meat immediately.
Yeah, like as soon as I saw that, I was like, that's got to be like human meat, right? And he's just like munching.
Oh yeah, but he's greedily eating the ceiling meat because he's starving.
Ceiling meat.
Yeah. But he finds the boots under this in the cabin.
So then he realizes, because he finds the boots and then he finds like an old attaché of like, it's like a military attaché and it's got like a star in there, medals, and photos and all that stuff. And so he realizes, I think at this point,
at one point on Marty's chest when they were still in the woods.
Yeah, that's right.
There was a discharge letter on Marty, or maybe it was a medal. Yeah,
so they found a medal on one of them, and I think they found it on they found it on Marty's after they woke up. And then they also on DJ, I think he found a
discharge letter, medical discharge.
Yeah, it could have been, but I thought he had a what am I thinking of? Like, what are they like? It's like shows the inside of your body. It's like a picture,
like an anatomical X-ray.
Yeah, like an X-ray. Okay. I guess it would be, and so they're kind of putting together anyway that this guy is either medical or he's
somebody. Yeah, they were talking about their mistakes before. Earlier in the movie, they're talking about their medical mistakes, and maybe this is a guy that was a result of that.
Yeah, and that he also was from the military in some way.
Yeah. Yep.
So they go, he finds his stuff, and then somebody comes through the door. Harry hides, and it's like an old guy. I think you said Wilford Brimley right away, but he's like an old guy. He's blind, and he looks like generic hillbilly mutant man.
Mm-hmm.
Harry realizes he's blind. It turns out the guy is like whoever's hunting them. It's like his dad.
His dad or his brother.
Maybe it's his brother.
I didn't catch that, but I do know that the blind guy swinging a stick or something. And he's like, no more killing. And then Harry takes an axe and hits him in the belly. And the old man falls down. And then Harry's like, I'm sorry.
You deserve to die.
Doesn't seem adequate.
This is an elderly hermit named Jesse.
Yes.
Who is blind. And he is his brother, Matthew, who is a disfigured, brain damaged war veteran.
He was disfigured and brain damaged after the war.
After the war.
Yes.
Yeah.
He didn't enter the military that way.
I don't think so. This just says a disfigured, brain damaged war veteran. He was a war veteran who was disfigured and then brain damaged, which I guess I don't know. I don't know. Did they say that in the movie?
It just feels like the very end of this movie was very thrown together haphazardly because it's never really made clear if they, it's not like Harry recognized this guy. Maybe he did in that final moment, but it doesn't there was no proof to show up.
And I'm glad they didn't, that he was like, oh my God, it's Matthew.
Yeah. Hey, Matthew.
The ending needed more. We'll get there. But, I like that it was just kind of, it was this guy who was taking it out on these
doctors,
hikers. He didn't, the disfigured man didn't know who they were, but he was a war veteran and was taking it out on these hikers. They just happened to be.
You don't think it was specific?
I don't think so.
But he was leaving medical discharge stuff. Maybe
he just was like a crazy dude. I don't know.
All right. I feel like since they were surgeons and since he was wronged in that way, I don't know how he would have known.
That's what I don't.
Yeah.
It's like, you know what I mean? He's got Harry also finds a portfolio of all of their medical licenses and stuff. And he's like, he knew the whole time. And then we cut to him at the hospital and behind some racks and things. There's this disfigured man in a lab coat, looking around, eavesdropping like Vincent Price, staking them all out. But I don't know how else he would have known.
Yeah. That's.
So my assumption is he just murders people in the woods and leaves military stuff because he's, this is actually falling apart.
Yeah.
So
I haven't really thought about it in these terms.
Because I guess it would make, if he is just he's obviously psychotic. He's disfigured from, I assume, a war injury.
Yes.
And, maybe that in his brain, he's that's my calling card. I don't know, rationalize it that way.
Well, Jesse did mention that he's a very good hunter.
Yes.
Yeah.
Do you think when he kills a deer, he leaves he leaves medical discharge notes on the deer?
I'd like to think so.
Good. There's a purple heart around the deer's neck.
He just doesn't know any better.
He's like, hey, this is odd. So anyway, we find Mitzi
on Abel's head. He's got one of those mirrors that doctors wear.
They find a dead bear wearing a doctor's coat and a stethoscope. Wait a minute. He's just leaving stuff on these animals. So as Harry's in the cabin, and we should also say there's just this movie it's old. It was not popular when it came out. Clearly wasn't taken care of. The canister this movie was in definitely was not cared for because the film grain itself was just of low quality. So the transfer, by the time you hit the last act of the film, it's very dark. And maybe just the lighting was bad on the film too. But compounding that fact, you have I would say the most cigarette burns I've ever seen across like a third act of a film. And then it's just very dark. So you don't really know. And at this point, Harry gets his leg slashed. You see just kind of like an arm come through the wall and cuts his leg, severs an artery. And so Harry's got to like cauterize it. And he's going to try to use like black powder to do it. While that's happening, Mitzi's outside hanging from like a tree.
Yeah.
And the disfigured veteran who's been hunting them starts a fire underneath Mitzi. And while
Mitzi's screaming.
Yes. And you're just like, help me. For me, I was just kind of like, I kind of wish there was a little bit more of like touching on the fact that like, Mitzi's not a coward, per se, that there should have, I feel like there should have been some more emotional connection to who Mitzi was, because he's dying. And I literally was like, just let the dude go. Cause he's only been like running away. He's literally been doing everything he could possibly do to make the audience hate him in every conceivable way. So you're like, Harry, stay in the cabin. Don't worry about him.
Yeah.
And while Harry's cauterizing his own leg, Mitzi burns to death outside.
Yeah.
So that by the time Harry kind of like gets his leg together, he looks over through a window, and you can just see like Mitzi's like flaming body.
And now I will say, and it's another thing, and maybe a lot of these things were left up to the viewer vaguely on purpose, but at the dam, once when Harry killed DJ, strangulation style, Mitzi he pieced out. He's like, I'm done with this shit. I'm not doing it anymore.
Yeah.
And then when he's hanging in the tree in this scene, he keeps saying, I came back for you, Harry. I wouldn't leave you.
Yeah.
And for me, I had to think, was he running away?
Yeah.
And even if he was running away, why is the movie punishing him? Like,
yeah, I don't know.
You know what I mean? Like, it's totally understandable. Like, one of my notes in this is, Mitzi is not unreasonable. Harry is effing determined.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think that in that situation, I don't think Mitzi is crazy. I don't think that what he's asking is crazy.
Yeah, no.
Any of these things.
No, because I think throughout it, it's kind of like, I guess as I mentioned earlier too, with like the cooking, these guys are just like terrified. They're scared. And Harry's like, you're not having a fire. You're not having a warm meal.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, yeah, of course they're going to be upset. They're going to be, they're going to be, whatever, they're going to have psychological issues, and they're going to have anxieties and things in the moment. Now, I did think it was odd when Harry looked out the window and the disfigured war veteran was putting an MRE around Mitzi's neck. I thought it was very strange. You got to leave the calling guard.
He's rubbing his hands together like, can't wait.
You got to leave the calling guard. So then I think you've got this whole film of tension, this whole film of traumas and psychological terror and anxieties. And then the disfigured war veteran guy throws 2 torches through a window and tries to unlock the door from the outside.
This cabin is full of holes because this guy knows. He's like, there's a cutting hole. Yeah. There's a hand sticking hole.
Yeah. And he throws in 2 torches, which into the cabin. Harry's able to just deftly put those out.
Like easy.
It was like the easiest thing. And then, the disfigured guy goes to like, the door is locked. He tries the door first. And then you see his arm come through the window to like reach around and like undo the locking mechanism. Harry's got a shotgun and just blows his arm off.
Man, it was a good one.
It was a good one. You watch that, like, and you can see that there was no problems with film grain there.
No.
The arm just like exploded like RoboCop. It was like, it was crazy.
It was good.
And then I don't know why the door opens. I didn't see him with the latch because his arm, maybe he got the door, maybe he unlocked it and then his arm blew off.
I guess.
Yes.
That's a good point.
But then he just like, this figured guy
forgot that he had a key.
Yeah, he's not screaming or anything either. He's like,
shit, he checked his other pocket.
Oh, well.
Yeah, that's right.
He walked in, the disfigured guy does, and he's holding a medal, like a war medal. And so you're kind of like, and you see him in full light. He does have a disfigured face. He looks messed up. And then you go, oh, okay, he's just a veteran who had a lot of problems and is like murdering these guys. But he's like holding a medal. Harry just like shoots him with a shotgun, like blows him away. So I'm kind of thinking now he was walking in with a medal because he's going to go put it around Harry's neck after he was dead.
Could be.
You know what I mean? Still that calling card.
Yeah.
But anyway, he dies. And then we cut to Harry's making his way out of the forest and finds a road. And then we can only assume he's saved from that point and sits in the middle of the road.
Yeah.
And
we made the observation that it's kind of the same era, so he's sitting on a road and the sun is like just right in the sky. It really looked like the truck with the girl from Texas Chainsaw Massacre was going to blow by him.
And I think
it just happening down the road,
and like Leatherface just like runs right by him, doesn't even look the other way, just kind of like chases them, does his chainsaw dance. Harry's just sitting there. Yeah, and that's the end of the movie.
Harry turns to the camera. Mondays, am I right?
There are days, and there are days. Yeah, he should have like warmed up some food right there and started eating. He's like, "Yeah, this rice is pretty good."
Started a fire just for you, Mitzi.
And he puts on a pair of boots, rubs his hands together, eats some rice. He's got Abel's head with him to talk to. So that's the end of the movie. I don't have really anything to add. I think everything else I want to talk about in the last segment, whether we should forget this movie or not, but I think it's I think getting through it seems it actually moved pretty quick. And I think once you've got all this character study kind of, I guess it's maybe not so much of a character study as it is like a character I don't know, it's like contrast and dichotomy. You have like people interacting with each other, so it's very like it could be ensemble, you just have a lot of like differing personalities and that sort of thing. But it moves quick.
It felt like to me, it just felt like so there was, have you ever seen the movie The Lighthouse?
No, not yet.
Okay, so
it's on my to watch list.
For me, this movie had a lot of the same feelings as The Lighthouse, where that movie was like it was how much can people take physically and mentally before they break?
Yeah,
like that's what this movie was for me, and maybe that was the war, the war allegory. I don't know, but just it was very much like things keep getting taken away from these people.
Yeah,
people their supplies, their friends. They keep having to like degrade themselves further and further to try to just survive.
That must have been some of the intent, right? It's just like how much deprivation can we, cause? And what are the reactions of these?
A great Sunday morning watch.
It was, it's perfect. I had my coffee. It was like I'm sitting by a Christmas tree. It was awful. Yeah, not what I expected, considering you described it as Old Man Predator.
And again, that was the first time I watched it, and the second time I watched it, it hit me a lot different.
Well, why don't we get on our way there, and we will we'll figure out I guess how we feel about this movie and which way whether we should remember it or just forget it as I forgot.
Absolutely. Okay? And before we do that, after break, I have Turning the Tables, and I have a trivia for you.
I'm excited.
Good.
I'm excited. I think, did we do one before? Did I do one before? Maybe I did for
that I asked you the questions.
Yeah, I think you did for Dead and Buried.
But you probably did. I write that one?
I think you did the trivia for Dead and Buried.
Right. I thought I was doing something new here.
No, I'm hoping we alternate.
Perfect.
Right. So every other movie will be one of our turns.
Excellent.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. Well, let's just take a short break. When we come back we'll do the trivia game, and we will give our summation of the film. Hello and welcome back to Forgotten Frights. I'm Josh, and I'm sitting here with Adam.
Hey.
And for this segment, we are going to do a 5-question trivia game that features me as the person being asked questions, and Adam asking the questions. So why don't you go ahead and take it away?
All right. Here are the 5 questions that I have for the movie The Rituals. Or is it Rituals?
I think it's just Rituals.
Rituals. All right. So number 1.
Remind me to sorry. Let's figure out why it's called that. We don't have to talk about it now, but let's get to it at the end.
Okay, I do believe they mentioned something. There's a conversation had.
Yeah.
Where it's, I think the conversation is had by Marty while they are moving him through the river. He's talking about how, and that's what pisses Mitzi off, and that's why Harry and Mitzi have that fight in the river.
Okay, and that's because their hiking is a ritual?
No, that there's ritualistic killings going on.
Oh, I see.
Like this is Marty's descent into madness.
Okay. Interesting.
I don't know if that exactly answers your question, but
I think so.
The word, because I remember Marty said, yes, they're rituals. And then he looked down the barrel of the camera and winked.
Marty's the one being carried on the stretcher.
That's right. He takes a big swig of scotch. I do, I will get into it more at the end, but I do like that at one point they're going through rations, and they're looking through Marty's pack, and I think Mitzi's like, "We got scotch and toilet paper. Really prepared, didn't you, Marty? Like that's all he brought."
I guess for an alcoholic, that makes.
He brought a flask of scotch and toilet paper.
All right, why don't we do this? Let's do this trivia game, and we will talk about the title.
Absolutely. All right. So, number 1, the actor who played Mitzi, Lawrence Dane, was producer on this film.
And this is true or false, correct?
True or false? Yes.
Okay. Producer?
Correct.
True. Because why else would you put yourself in the position to be Mitzi?
That is correct. Yes.
It is true.
Yep.
Oh, cool.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And then I also, I need to look this back up, but I saw that Lawrence Dane was in, I believe he was in Scanners.
Oh, okay.
I haven't seen that movie in a minute, but I want to say he was in Scanners as Brian Oblivion.
What? His last name was Oblivion? Interesting.
Or I'm getting that confused with one of the actors. The other actors is in the movie Videodrome as Brian Oblivion. I think that's what I'm thinking.
Okay, because I was like, Scanners would be interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's Mitzi.
Yeah.
And then let me see. Sorry, I'm just looking it up. I don't. Yeah, Scanners. He's Braden Keller. Is he the main character?
No.
No, I think you're right. But who's the main character of Scanners now? Let's find out. David Cronenberg, Stephen Lack. Maybe it's Stephen Lack.
Okay.
I guess. Okay, go ahead.
All right, question 2. There is a 1982 sequel to this film called The Creeper.
Oh, no. Not what year?
1982.
I'm gonna say false.
That is correct. This film was released in 1982, re-released in 1982 as The Creeper.
So the new title was The Creeper.
Correct.
Okay, let's talk about that after we're done.
Number 3, this film was shot in Colorado.
I'm going to say true because it seems like it's very national parky.
That is false.
It is false. Okay.
It was in Northern Ontario.
Oh.
In a spot called the Cauldron of the Moon.
The film was set in Northern Ontario, and it was filmed in Northern Ontario.
Correct.
That's good. That's a good piece of trivia.
Number 4, the sequence in which Mitzi and Harry pull Marty upstream took 3 full days to film.
Full days? Full?
I mean, not 24 hours straight.
just filming straight on. That's so much film. That's probably why the film stock looks so bad.
That's why that part of the movie looks so good and everything else.
They wasted all the good stuff. Yeah, I'm going to say true on that one.
That is false. It actually took them 5 full days.
Oh my God. Oh,
I
man.
thought, when I wrote that question, I'm like, 3 days seems like a lot.
5
and
days.
It was 5 days.
How did they convince them to do that?
That was one of the things that Hal Holbrook talked about, was that he said that it was so physically demanding.
Yeah.
And that was one of the things he landed on, as far as just to show how difficult it was, is that just that scene, and who knows, maybe that was 6-hour days, but still you're in the water for that long.
That's So actually, as an aside, there's a John Borman interview that I heard where he talks about getting the actors to go down the river in Deliverance. And I think somebody asked him just how difficult was it to be so demanding. And Borman more or less was just like, oh, I just don't make it seem like a big whoop. I would just go, okay, well, you're just going to sit in the raft and you're going to go down there and you're going to go over that thing and then you're going to do that. And he's like, most of the time, you don't get any, they're most of the time, actors we'll just go ahead and go do it. If you don't make it like this big thing, but yeah.
Wow.
Kind of, but it sounds like for them, they were just like, hey, director, you're an ass.
The end of day 2, like, we're almost done, right? Director's like, no,
3 more days.
Yeah.
At least.
The final question, number 5. Stephen King praised this movie in his book, Danse Macabre.
Oh, that is so weird because I just brought up that book. Now, have I heard anything just last episode? No, that was this episode. We were talking about Danse Macabre. Yeah. Is that serendipity? Is that what
I thought that's why you brought up Danse Macabre, because it was weird that you brought it up, and I'm like,
no, I don't remember it being mentioned at all.
Okay.
But I'm going to have to say true.
It is absolutely true.
Interesting.
And the reason I bring that up is because Leonard Maltin and Siskel and Ebert hated this movie.
Yeah.
Leonard Maltin basically said it was unpleasant.
Wow.
Something else. You know what? We'll wait till the end though. So you got what? You got 1,
3, right?
You got 2 out of 5, I believe.
2. I got the Stephen King one.
And Stephen King one, you got the actor Lawrence Dane was producer.
Okay.
But and you got the Creeper one.
Yeah.
Right? So yeah, you got 3 out of 5.
Okay. Well, I'll have to take it. Has anybody ever made the joke that, like, if Donald Pleasance was really bad in a movie, like the reviewer or the critic would just say, like, this was unpleasant?
That must have been said.
That's got to be something, right? Interesting. So it's just
if he was bad in a movie.
If he was bad,
that's
Donald Pleasance. Why am I not thinking of his face?
Tremendous in Puma Man.
Yes, Donald Pleasance. Our Dr. Loomis.
Dr. Loomis, yeah.
Dr. Loomis. Truly, and I'll take flack for it, but I think a truly terrible actor. I think truly bad. And I think Dr. Loomis is truly a bad character.
You're talking about Pleasance, not McDowell?
Both.
Yeah, I agree.
I think Loomis is a bad character, but I think that's because he's both actors who played him did a bad job.
I think maybe also maybe he just didn't do his job very well.
I think that's
like the character.
I think both of them. And I think if you read interviews with like Donald Pleasance on the set of Halloween, I think he was very contradictory to John Carpenter to begin with. And I know for sure there's an interview where he says, I don't understand the script at all. I don't know why this character is saying these things. And it shows. It shows in the filming his overall quality of acting. I'll just keep going. He was in fact unpleasant to watch.
There we go.
Thank
there
you.
It is.
I got it. So that is serendipity, because I do not remember Stephen King mentioning rituals in Danse Macabre. So that's very cool.
Yeah,
that happened. We recorded it.
And one more thing about Danse Macabre, and I'll stop talking about that book that's dominated this talk. But I remember
to talk about that. Let's just talk about that.
I remember reading that book when I think I was still in high school. But I remember him talking about. I think he talked about Basket Case.
Okay,
and I want to say that he talked about Q the Winged Serpent and. Basket Case, he kind of like, I didn't realize that was a thing before.
Yeah.
But the Hugh the Winged Serpent, that was a revelation. If you've never seen that movie,
never seen it. No,
it's tremendous.
I've never
It's tremendous.
I think if you've read Dance Macabre, like for me, if I hear the word Dionysian or Apollonian one more time, I'm jumping out a window because he just keeps saying it. And the book's like 600 pages, and I have like 400 pages to go. So, but I have read it once before. I read it some years ago, and I'm listening to it this time around, and it's good.
Okay.
So, anything else you want to bring up on Dance Macabre?
No, I'm good.
What about Rituals, aka The Creeper?
We can talk about that after. Are we doing a break or?
I mean,
going right to it? No,
I think last time we just went right through.
Oh,
so.
yeah. No, I guess for me, I also found out that it was.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I don't mean to. I don't want to rush anything. I do, just let's let's get to the next segment.
Yeah.
Which is should we what did we like, what did we dislike, and then does this deserve to be a forgotten fright?
I wanted to point out that this film was shot in continuity, which is just tremendous to think about. Like it's like things were not shot out of order. It was shot, just straight through, which makes the most sense for a movie like this. And then also, speaking of the quality of the film stock, the film was cut heavily for TV, Embassy VHS. It was a terrible transfer, and apparently not until just recently. Apparently before, I think we both watched it on Prime Video.
Yep.
Before the way it looked in the cabin is how the entire movie looked.
Oh, that's terrible.
It was just bad.
It was like that dark and grainy and.
Yep.
Was it the lighting or was it just the overall?
I think it was the lighting. I think it was just crackly, soundtrack.
That sucks.
Just, yep.
Yeah.
More cigarette burns.
So many. That's interesting. It was shot in continuity. So I imagine, because I think both of us weren't really taken with the ending.
No, especially after we talked about it.
So that means like Hal Holbrook right after, like, they're like, okay, and then you fire the shotgun and kill him. And so Hal Holbrook was sitting there and he's like, this sucks. This is unpleasant.
I'm 40 years old.
Yeah. I'm 35 years old. Have you guys read Dance Macabre? So it's quite possible. Or the guy who's like the mutant, or not, I want to say mutant, but disfigured one better, was just very much like.
Maybe they had like, there was like a 5-day period to film, and it's like they had all this crazy stuff that they were going to do at the end, but they're like, we got hung up in the river. We just got to wrap this up.
They have a 10-day shooting schedule, 5 days on the river.
Yeah. So we just got to wrap this up. Here, put this mask on.
It was the most realistic scene. So for sure. Yeah. Anything else you wanted to add as far as likes, dislikes?
I mean, I think that the tension of the movie, I think the struggle of the movie, probably my favorite part of the movie was in the very beginning, where they get dropped off by the plane, and they're making their way across the first water, like the river area, and they step down into a deep hole, and they're like trying the one Abel's holding his camera up. They're all laughing, and I did look that up, that was one complete, that was just one shot. They didn't like do takes on that. They just filmed the guys coming across the river. It was so genuine, and they were all like having a good time.
Yeah.
I thought that was such a cool scene, because you just had all these actors together. They're trying to make their way across this difficult water terrain. They're falling down. It was just a very genuine, real scene. I thought that was very cool.
That is cool when they can get something genuine like that, where it's, it clearly wasn't meant to be in film, but you get that real reaction.
The one guy falls into the hole a little bit, and the other actor behind him kind of laughs a little bit because he's like, you lost your footing.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah. It felt like, that's not even something I noticed, but mostly like, and I guess I would say, like, throughout the film, it did feel quite genuine. Like, a lot of the characters' reactions and that frustration seemed very palpable and real. So that's cool. I don't, as far as, let me look at, I had more notes for this than the other film. So, Yeah, talked about atmosphere, the great character dichotomy. I think we talked about that. Just a good balance of characters, and as they're kind of falling off, it's like, oh, okay, well, there's just a lot of good combativeness, and it seems very real. A lot of just talking about like death in this movie, and a lot of a lot of like reflection on death, which kept it very like grounded, I think, in what it was trying to say. As far as I guess from what I took out of it, just like those like failed guardianship, Hal Holbrook trying to guide them out of there and having to make really rash decisions, ultimately failing, which is just mimicking the service that this disfigured veteran went through and kind of being failed, whether that's from the military or the people around him or whatever, and then created a monster more or less. And then, just having the kind of finality of Hal Holbrook sitting in the middle of the road, just waiting to get, picked up.
We should talk about too, did you pick up on the conversation between Mitzi and Harry about Harry's father?
Yeah, what was going? So I couldn't tell if that was about his father or if that was about Andy, because they talk about their friends like suicide, so there's death there. But then doesn't Hal Holbrook says something about just like, I don't care, I don't think about him anymore.
Yeah, I think like his father was an alcoholic. He was a bad person. And Mitzi keeps like bringing him up. Like, you're leaving, you're going to leave us like you left your father.
Oh, interesting.
And Hal Holbrook at one point was just like, I will kick your ass if you say that again.
Yeah.
Like, he was very put off by it. So there's a lot of levels to the, it's not just war, it's abandonment. It's, there's all these different issues, and the fact that he is a recovering alcoholic, and the fact that, I think Marty at one point said, oh, you used to drink, and Holbrook's like, yeah, I don't remember like 4 or 5 years of my life or something like that.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of layers to the character development, or,
Yeah, I think it's, if they're gonna, I think, maybe they should have put that down a little bit more, or, maybe harped on that a bit more with his father, maybe just drawing that out a bit.
I agree.
Or make Holbrook the recovering alcoholic.
I mean, he was.
Oh, see, I thought it was Marty who was.
No, he was a full blown alcoholic.
Oh, okay, because
Holbrook, they were offering Mitzi and Marty at that one point on the rocks.
Yeah,
were getting all tanked on scotch.
Oh, gotcha.
And Hal Holbrook again, as the guardian, he's just like, Marty's supposed to be drinking because his foot hurts.
Yeah, and you're just drinking because whatever. Because I remember him saying just like, I thought he said something like, oh yeah, I don't know why I quit. I just quit.
Yeah,
and I thought that was more to do with just like I didn't care about it as much as you do.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess I didn't pick. I guess I got to watch it a third time.
Yeah, they should have been like, you should have got to the cabin and there should have been like a 6-pack of Busch Light, and then you'd have that tense moment where he's gonna like crack 6 of those boys open and start chugging them, but he doesn't.
Yeah,
and then then the blind brother comes in and he starts crushing beers.
It's Miller time.
Yeah, man, Holbrook's gonna watch from the closet.
Slurms and McKenzie.
Oh, he's having such a good time. I think just the tension is really good. I think if I'm going to get to like dislikes on the film, for sure, like the ending, it wasn't trash, but it was like, it just kind of confusing. And I feel like they have, I think they do a good job setting up 3/4 of this movie is great, setting up the themes, the ideas. I mean, we both picked up on it, fairly easily, what's going on this, but then you just get to like, he like shoots a guy's arm off and then and then like a mutant walks into the room, it's like, well, that's kind of confusing. That's not, but I think they were obviously trying to say like, oh, here's this guy, here's this veteran. He was messed up. You should be ashamed, I guess, but I don't know, it never got to a point where Holbrook was like, I failed in the military to bring people home, or I messed up so bad and killed a few guys in the military because of my poor surgeon skills or something. Instead, he's just like, I don't know. I want to help get these guys out of here, but sorry, mutant, gonna blow your arm off. I don't know. Yeah. I can't make the connection. So
yeah.
But when it comes down to, should this be a forgotten fright? Should audiences forget this film, or should we recommend it?
Absolute recommend.
Yeah.
I think the movie is it's a quick watch. It's a tight 1:30, I think, hour and 30 minutes.
Yeah, it was pretty. Yeah,
so it's I mean, it's absolutely it's tense. The end, it is what it is. But
yeah.
I think there's a lot of themes that they probably delved into a little too deep. Maybe it should have been a two movie situation or a limited series on Netflix.
Yeah, or just like so many of the if you're gonna have that many characters. You have 5 characters and they all have problems. It just leaves a lot by the end of the film that you're like, okay, well, you had this theme going and that theme going, but those guys are dead now, so it doesn't even really matter. And then you just have Holbrook, and it's like, so are we tying that to him too? I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think for sure recommend. I'd mentioned it earlier, probably because I've seen Deliverance a number of times. I kind of prefer this if you're going to make the comparison, I guess. I think this does a really good job with that idea of, being out in the wild, and then you have, I don't know, a crazy hillbilly monster murdering people.
Yeah.
With that being said, I don't think the parallels even between the two films are that strong. So I like both movies for,
Yeah, I don't think I would have made that connection.
Yeah, I don't.
If I just read that. Yeah.
So, no, I think for sure. I think just outside of just the last little bit there. But even that, it wasn't bad. It was like, oh, I get it. And I like the fact that he's sitting in the road, kind of just watching.
Yeah, I will say, too, it's very surprising, but it turns out that Hal Holbrook is an amazing final girl.
Yeah, it's very strange, isn't it? Yeah, because it seems like he's such a B-side character in so much. And then he's like Rambo.
Yep.
So, yeah, that's anything you want to add?
No, I enjoyed this movie thoroughly.
Perfect. I don't know. Do we know what the next movies are going to be, and should we announce them, or should we just wait? Does it matter?
Probably wait.
Because I think we were talking maybe last episode, we mentioned doing something a little bit frostier.
Frostier meaning
cold and wintry. For if we're going to do them for maybe January or February.
Yeah, maybe we can do one that's frosty, and then one that's.
We should look for. Yeah, why don't we wait? Because we'll look up some movies in like the 60s or 70s that were maybe snow based.
Yeah,
Winter Cabins.
Okay.
Also, The Creeper is a much better title than Rituals.
Oh, I thought it was terrible.
It's still not good.
If you're putting everything on this movie, you're putting it related to the mutant character that you see on the very end of the movie.
Keep saying mutant. He's got it.
Yeah, I mean,
he did look like a mutant.
Yeah, he's got like a Two-Face thing going on.
He did. So they should have just called it the mutant.
Yeah, the Two-Face creeper in the woods.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us. This has been another episode of Forgotten Frights. We will see you next time. So good night and good fright.